Hello and welcome back to the next episode of What's Next, the world of endotoxin. I am Brendan.
And I am Moya. It's been almost 1 year over since we started this journey, so time really flies. And today on episode 7, we have another special guest to help us.
Yeah, it has been a long time, and I'm really excited about our special guest today. We have an endotoxin testing specialist from Lonza. We have with us today Caitlin East.
Thanks for having me.
So, Oya, really interestingly, Caitlin and I got in contact after Caitlin wrote some really interesting articles on LinkedIn about fluorescence and absorbance and how they relate to endotoxin testing.
First of all, thank you for joining us today. And just before we start, could you please shortly introduce yourself?
Sure. Like Brendan said, I'm an endotoxin testing specialist for Lonza. My background is in biomedical engineering and electronics and instrumentation, so kind of a natural fit today to talk about absorbance and fluorescence.
Great. Well, Caitlin, why don't we get started? Can you give us a little bit of details about absorbance testing?
Sure. First, let's talk about absorbance in a general way. Absorbance is the physical transfer of energy from light into matter. So when an object absorbs light, that energy from light at a particular wavelength is transferred into another form, whether it's heat, vibration, or chemical energy. So that amount of energy directly corresponds to the electronic transition of the ground state to this excited state. That transition occurs in a predictable and repeatable way based on the composition of the matter. Absorbance occurs all around us. Colors, it's due to absorbance, right? So the leaves on the plants behind me are green because they're absorbing all of the wavelengths of light except green, which is reflected back into our eyes. Absorbance detection is a method used by scientists to quantify absorbing molecules in a solution. So absorbance can be used to do several things, but one of the more common uses is to determine the amount of a known substance in a solution. So for a quantitative analysis, that intensity of light absorbed at the wavelength of the substance of interest is measured before and after the light passes through a sample. The light that's able to pass through that sample or not be taken up or absorbed is called transmitted light. Transmission is going to be that ratio of that output light over the input light. And then absorbance mathematically is going to be that absolute value of the log of that transmission.
And this is really very interesting. So what about fluorescence? How does it differentiate from absorbance?
That's a good question. So fluorescence is absorbance taken a step further. So like absorbance, a light source is used to excite molecules within a sample. However, the molecules that are in a fluorescence species have energy transitions that are higher in energy and more unstable than non-fluorescent species. So when this matter is in the presence of light of sufficient energy, it transfers energy from those ground state electrons to the excited state, which is higher than what you would see in a typically absorbing species. That excited state is temporary, and when those electrons transition back down, because it's so unstable, light's emitted from that substance. So not only is the light taken in, but it actually creates light. The wavelength of that created light is going to be different because some of that energy, when it's first absorbed, does go into heat and vibration. The rest of it goes into that transition up to another state. So the amount that's used for the emission is going to be less. That fluorescent detection method, it measures the emitted light, which is highly specific. So it's looking at that excitation and emission pair, which is going to correspond to a particular fluorophore. So that pair, they have a very different amount in wavelength from excitation and emission. That's called the Stokes shift. Because the emitted light is different in wavelength, the fluorescence detection method has really high sensitivity since it's measuring against a background of 0. It's only measuring generated light from the fluorescent species, not that in absorbance, which is subtractive, you're measuring the total light that's left over. So the Stokes shift allows for this separation of high intensity excitation and then this low intensity emission, and you're allowed to have this really sensitive detection method, which is usually 3 orders of magnitude or greater than what we see in absorbance.
Well, it's really technical when you really get down into the depths of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the more and more you describe it, the more and more I think, wow, I really don't know. But it's a great way to explain it. And what does the future hold, do you think, for the different readout methods?
That's a great question. All I can really say is that it remains to be seen. With increased adoption of recombinant methods, the needs of microbiologists will really determine what comes next. The adoption of fluorescent-based recombinant technology has the potential to leverage that really high sensitivity and specificity of the detection method. Other things on the horizon, though, or rapidly approaching, would be kind of the inclusion or integration of fluorescent technology into higher throughput or easier to use formats. But like I said, the adoption by, feedback from, and collaboration with partners in the industry will really be critical for maximizing this format to its fullest potential.
Thank you, Caitlin. That was really interesting, and we really appreciate you having the time to talk to us today. And it was really enlightening, the basic definitions of absorbance and fluorescence, all you have explained. And I want to also thank everyone watching us all the last year, and for the lovely comments and emails that we have received.
Yeah, thank you, Caitlin, for so much. As Oya said, thank you, everybody. We have received some amazing emails from partners in the industry thanking us for what we've done this year, and we hope we've been able to deliver something that's interesting, but also really neutral. And also, I do want to say with Caitlin here, if you want to learn more about fluorescence, please go and follow her on LinkedIn. She's written 2 amazing articles on fluorescence and absorbance, and they really are interesting to read.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciated it, and I really enjoyed these little sessions.
Yeah.
No.
So thank you, everyone, once again viewing and listening us. So we look forward to meet you in our next sessions, hopefully. So just before we leave, as always, Brendan.
Yeah, I wish I didn't have to continue to say this, but we're going to have to. Remember to wear a mask, wash your hands, get vaccinated, and stay safe.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.